Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you're listening around the world, a very warm welcome from London here in the UK. Here is today's news about electric cars and the future of transport. I go through every EV article online, so you don't have to. My name is Martin Lee, and this is your EV News Daily for Saturday, the 21st of April 2014. Coming up on the show today, we'll talk about Mercedes' first full electric, the EQC, and the Maybach luxury EV, revealed by mistake. But first of all, timing, Yesterday, I found a brilliant Audi e-tron Quattro video on the Nürburgring, sliding around. Great testing video. Talked about it on the podcast yesterday. Figured we wouldn't talk about the e-tron again for a little while, and that would be that. And then today, well, thank you, Audi. A new press release and loads more hard details. So let's fill in the blanks that this time yesterday we didn't know about the Audi e-tron. We'll start by talking about the battery pack, and it sits underneath, as all new EVs are. The skateboard design sits between the front and the rear axles. 432 battery cells in a flat sandwich style under the floor. 150 kilowatt charging. That's faster than a Jaguar I-PACE by a third. And a Tesla Model S. Now, the pack weighs 715 kilograms, or 1,573 pounds. There are 36 battery modules to each pack, each one about the size of a shoebox, and each of those containing 12 pouch cells, kind of in coffee bag sized pouches. Well, engineers for Audi say they favoured the pouch type cells over the prismatic cells for cooling and packaging reasons. There's a WLTP rating on this now, and it's 250 miles or 400 kilometres. There's no EPA range on this yet, but of course WLTP, which takes over from the NEDC way of measuring range, which frankly was not only very old and out of date, but enormously optimistic. WLTP is much more real-world range. So, when they say 250 miles, you're going to get a decent chunk of that. And I think what it was is that people were talking about 300 or 350 miles, so when Audi said this yesterday, there was a sense of disappointment on some blogs and websites saying that they've fallen short, but have they? I mean, can you drive for 250 miles and not need a toilet break? And so maybe sensing some of that disappointment in advance, Audi went really big in this press release on charging speed and how they're keeping the battery in prime condition with those really fast charging speeds. Well, there's active thermal management, and it's a set of circuits, like little mini radiators really, filled with antifreeze. It'll cool the battery from the outside, and if the outside air is too warm, the aircon compressor can kick in to cool the battery. That includes charging at 150 kilowatts as well, and when you're charging at home. So whenever it's plugged in or when it's moving, it's able to heat and cool the battery. And of course, the batteries like to be, well, they're the same as us, you know, 20 to 25 degrees C, and a lithium-ion battery is pretty happy with that. There's a heat pump as well. That'll extract cooling capacity from the air too. Even in freezing conditions, when you're on the Kelvin scale, it can still take some energy from the air and help heat and cool regardless of the temperature. Well, the pack is assembled in Brussels, and it's warrantied for 250,000 kilometres. That's the same as the life of the car, and as we're seeing with recent research into Tesla batteries, it's more than likely that these battery packs are going to have second and third life applications and be going well after the other bits of metal have stopped working. Well, there's a backup battery in the Audi e-tron Quattro as well. That's in case the main battery runs flat, and it's reserved for things like the electronic parking brake, the hazard lights, and crucial controls. Also, Audi have done a really smart thing by getting into a one smart card situation to charge it at nearly all chargers. Obviously, Tesla has the supercharging network, so VW have been thinking, how do we do our own version of making it easy to charge without building all those chargers? So they have brought together 40,000 chargers using one smart card. It's the e-tron charging service, and it'll allow e-tron drivers to tap into the existing network of chargers run by 1,000 different providers across Europe. So Audi's done the hard work for you. All you have to do is have one card, one app, and that sorts out the billing. 80% of every single AC and DC charging station is covered by this new Audi card. Well, smart charging home systems will be offered from 11 to 22. And that's interesting because 11 kilowatts on my home power supply, I can see how a level 2 charger would go in, 6 or 8 or 9 or 11 kilowatts. But Audi wanting to do home charging at 22 kilowatts may need a little bit of work on your home wiring system, but certainly some thought into how that much juice gets from a domestic circuit into the car. But that's what they'll be offering. The e-tron's going to be equipped with an energy management system that will balance your charging at home alongside your other household electric demands. That allows owners of the e-tron to schedule charging during times when it knows your off-peak electricity rate kicks in. Well, GreenCarReports had a fantastic article on this. Lots of websites did today, but they really got under the skin of it. I highly recommend you read the whole thing. They say the 400-volt charging system, which is presently 400 volts on the Audi e-tron, will be joined in the future by an 800-volt system that can charge at 350 kilowatts. And of course, the Porsche Mission-E, yeah, you're right, sister company, 800 volts. You can see how this technology may migrate across. Well, that system on the Porsche Mission-E, which charges at 350 kilowatts, would charge the e-tron battery pack in 12 minutes. And Audi say they've done the research on the average time to pull into a petrol station, fill up your SUV with petrol, diesel, gas, pay, get back in the car. That's 7 minutes. You can get a full battery charge in 12 minutes, which is not that much more. And all of a sudden, if there's enough of these stations around, then range anxiety disappeared. Didn't last long, did it? Only a few years. The SUV arrives late this year in Europe, sometime in 2019 in the US. It is based on the VW Group's MLB architecture. A bit of a one-off, though, because the future Audi electric vehicles are going to be on the MEB compact electric car architecture, or, if you're going bigger, the PPE architecture. In August, the e-tron will have its world premiere in Brussels with other electric Audi products. So, thank you, Audi, for filling in all the details that we didn't have 24 hours ago and making sure that 2 days in a row we were talking about the e-tron Quattro. Let's stay in Germany and talk about a Mercedes. And Inside EVs reporting the Mercedes EQC has been caught roaming the streets of Germany as a fully disguised prototype. The EQC, as it will be called, is undergoing some final testing rounds ahead of its world premiere as a production model later this year at the same auto show in the City of Lights, scheduled to open its doors in early October. And of course, the EQC, along with the EQA, that being equivalent-ish to an A-Class, the EQS, which will be coming equivalent-ish to an S-Class. You can see what Merc are doing. They point out that the two electric motors will do your 0 to 60 in less than 5 seconds on the Mercedes EQC. The concept was said to do 310 miles from a 70 kilowatt hour battery. That sounds very optimistic. 310 miles? A 70 kilowatt hour battery? No, it's going to be a bigger battery than that, surely, and it's going to be slightly fewer miles. But we appreciate what they were saying with the concept. Right, moving on to BMW. And at this year's Auto China, the motor show, we're going to see the debut of the BMW iX3, reports at Auto Evolution, highlighting a teaser video that BMW released online yesterday. They continue that the iX3 is going to be offered with a dual motor configuration, in addition to the all-wheel drive sure-footedness, they say. An electric motor for each of the two axles will translate to BMW-like performance in the straight line as well. After the Mini EV and the iX3, BMW are in line to launch the 5th generation electric drivetrain in 2021. Now, the goal being 700 kilometers or 435 miles of driving range per charge on their next gen EV. So we've covered off a gorgeous Audi SUV, a gorgeous Mercedes EQC, and the BMW X3 is lovely. So you can imagine that the iX3 is going to be equally as lovely as well. Some really nice luxury cars coming at the very, not the top end of the market, but the kind of the mid to upper end of the market. You are talking 50, 60, 70, 80,000 pound cars here. You start speccing them up and they're going to go up as well. Well, staying with Mercedes then, let's talk about Mercedes hybrid. The GLE 550e is a hybrid, which has an output of the a 85 kilowatt motor and a 3-litre twin-turbo V6 for about 436 brake horsepower on that. 4-wheel driven and 7-speed automatic transmission. Now, there's an 8.7 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery in the GLE, and with a full charge on the EPA range, it's about 10 miles. That's right, because the Mercedes GLE 550e is a big unit, a couple of tons, and with less than a 10 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery, to get 10 miles, it is probably about right, maybe 8 miles in EV-only mode if you are a bit heavy with your right foot, but still, for a nice big luxury car, for a plug-in hybrid, the kind of thing that when you're going downhill and you can do some regen, it will put some energy back into that, admittedly, very small battery, and crucially, as they won't be selling as many diesels as they probably planned to be selling, using the electric motor and battery is a great way to get those emissions down. Well, 3 more stories, and staying in the luxury end of the market, Maybach has been revealed by a mistake. On the podcast, only a few days ago, we talked about these teaser images that were released online of the all-electric Maybach. Super top-end luxury, gorgeous car. And now it seems that a mini site or a micro site has been turned on accidentally and then turned off very quickly. Someone in an internet department somewhere had a very bad review by their boss. However, it wasn't turned off quick enough and images were captured. Autoblog have all the details on this. They say there's a big waterfall grille flanked by low and aggressive 3-unit headlines, and the detailing is a combination of SUV cues and something a bit more luxurious. Not a design that a 3-box sedan, they say, it's easy to design one of those that is still recognisably an SUV and a Maybach. But all the white leather and rose gold detailing kind of give away its luxury. It's all-wheel drive, it's all-electric. Now, they say that the battery is going to be 80 kilowatt hours on this, and I'm thinking for a Maybach, where you can go top end of the market, bigger margins, you would probably go a bit bigger. You'd probably go as big a battery as you can. Limited top speed of 155 miles an hour, but with 350 kilowatt charging, you do get your 60 miles in 5 minutes. So maybe you can get away with a smaller battery. I still think the kind of people that would buy a Maybach would insist the best of the best, and you got to go big on the battery. But we'll wait for more details. Well, all new and thoroughly renovated residential buildings with more than 10 parking spaces in Europe must be equipped with the appropriate pre-wiring for a charging point in each of those parking spaces. In the case of commercial buildings, 20% of spaces have to be pre-wired, says Fleet Europe. The move is part of a wider European policy to reduce the CO2 output and to boost the uptake of EVs. And finally, staying in Europe, the Ionity high-powered charging network is the one that's supported by BMW, by Daimler, Ford, VW, and the subsidiaries Audi and Porsche will have their name to Ionity. And now they're said to be talking to Volvo, Fiat Chrysler, PSA Opel, Jaguar Land Rover, and even Tesla. Now, there should be 400 of these chargers, but so far only 20 have been installed, the first one being in Germany, but still. 350 kilowatt chargers coming to Europe, just as we talked about Electrify America, bringing those 350 kilowatt chargers, 2,000 of those across the major routes and in things like Walmarts in North America as well. It just seems the last few weeks there's been an explosion of really fast charging news stories, and things are really happening with it. Well, that's the news today, and I would love to spread the word about electric cars. If you can, share this with somebody who might be interested. If you can think of somebody now who might be interested, well then pass this on. You can listen to every previous episode of the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the blog at evnewsdaily.com. You can subscribe if you remember to do that, which means you get it first and free and automatically on every platform we put the podcast out on. You can leave little reviews if you possibly could. Takes 2 minutes, rate and review. It just really helps in the kind of algorithm thing where they, put the podcast further up the recommendations if it has a couple of reviews. On the Amazon Echo, if you search for the new skill, EV News Daily, it'll play you a flash briefing of this podcast. And on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter, you can search EV News Daily to chat on the socials. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.